It's quite a gospel reading that we've just heard. Not exactly filled with good news, not exactly what you would expect to hear on a Sunday morning. You remember that we're now almost at the very end of Jesus' trip to Jerusalem. He's been now in Jerusalem for about a week. He's been teaching in the temple. He's, in the chapter just before this, had a series of exchanges with the Pharisees and the scribes where they're trying to trap him. And then after all of that heady debate in that heated arena of conversation, of political conflict, he sits down and he notices that there is a widow who's taking a coin and putting it in the temple. There are all sorts of other people putting their money into the temple offering, but what he notices is the widow who is giving of her slight treasure in thanksgiving to God for her life, in petition for some worry that's on her mind. He notices the widow giving. And then immediately we hear this great story. Immediately his disciples pay no attention to the fact that he's talking about a widow. They say, "Whoa, would you look at this place? This is gorgeous. This is a great, glorious place." And it is a great and glorious place. Jerusalem is on a mountain, and that temple has been there for 2,000 years in one form or another, and it's become the spiritual center of the Jewish people. And so it carries that spiritual weight already. But then King Herod the Great came along about 50 years before this, and he started a rebuilding campaign. And he doubled the size of the temple, and he built up the walls with these great, huge, beautiful stones, and he covered the walls with sheets of gold so that the rising sun in the morning would catch it, and people would be blinded with its glory. It was a glorious place. And all of the ornaments that decked the temple inside, the priests had all put out, and it was a fantastic place. And that's what caught the disciples' attention. And immediately Jesus replies, "You know, not one stone that you see here that's so beautiful that you think is so great is going to end up standing. They're all going to be knocked down. This whole place will be rubble." So, don't be fooled by the trappings of power and by the trappings of glory. They're not the things that will last. This is a moment, he says, to remember the kingdom that I have brought into this world. And what is that kingdom? It's not the kingdom of Roman power. It's not the kingdom of religious authority and powers. This is the kingdom of widows, of lepers, of those who are outcasts, of those who are on the edges. It is the kingdom of the Good Samaritan. It is the kingdom of the son of the prodigal son. It's the kingdom of lost people who turn and are healed. It's the kingdom of the people who live on the fringes, who are most vulnerable. That's where God is building God's kingdom. He says, hold on to that kingdom, because that's the only one that will endure. That's all we have to count on, is that kingdom, not these other kingdoms that you see around you. And what the disciples who are there then hear is this call to loyalty to him and to his kingdom and to his values. And then he goes on to say, well, and there are going to be wars and earthquakes and persecutions. And some of you will be arrested and you'll be betrayed by your families. And all you can do is endure. And if you endure, you will conquer. You will be victorious if you endure. Now, the people to whom Luke was writing this gospel, because remember, Luke is writing it 30 or 40 years later. It's a different audience. The people who are hearing this as Luke wrote it know that what he says is true. The temple has already been knocked down. There was a Jewish rebellion which took over the city and lasted for 3 or 4 years, and then the Romans came back and destroyed the temple, and destroyed the city. And they started a persecution of this new upstart group of folks named Christians. And these people who were reading it for the first time as Luke wrote it knew about those persecutions. Some of them had been arrested. Some of them had been betrayed. They knew that this was true. And they knew that the only answer they had been able to come up with was to endure, was to hold on to that kingdom and to live your life faithfully on that kingdom that Christ has brought, on the promise that that is the kingdom that will endure. So, the election's over. There's a layer of anxiety which is gone, that we all had a week ago, just wanting to get the stupid campaign over with. It's been replaced. It's been replaced by